Hi, and welcome to another Well Workplaces podcast episode. I'm here with Angela Ferguson, who's the Managing Director of FutureX Collective. Angela, how you going?
Good, Tom. Very well. Thank you.
Now, we were just talking, you were just coming back from a wellness retreat last week, or was it just yesterday?
Just yesterday, actually. I got home on Sunday, had a day of sort of reintegrating back into the world. There was a lot of silence during the retreat. So, getting used to speaking again was interesting as well.
Yeah, it's really good timing for a wellbeing type retreat, given the year that it's been. And hopefully the discussion today isn't too much of a straight back into it sort of moment. But for those of you that are listening or watching this live, today's the episode where we're going to be talking about designing productivity or designing for productivity in the workplace. And just to introduce this, Angela, and to give this a bit of context, I guess in the workplace, over the last year or 2 years, really, we're coming up to this juncture where there's a lot of talk around the Great Resignation or the Great realignment, or whatever you want to call it, the great opportunity. Some people are talking about it as well. We're coming up to that point where I guess into next year, organisations and businesses have to think really strongly about their value proposition, being that, how do we attract and retain talent? And obviously as well, there's a lot of talk around just how workplaces are designed and how that fits in also for employee well-being as well, which is what we talk a lot about on this podcast. So I feel like it's a really nice topic to be talking about specifically at this point in time as organisations look, towards their workplace strategy for next year. But Angela, I might just sort of start us off with maybe if you can introduce or talk a little bit about FutureX Collective and what that business is about. It'd be really interesting to learn that.
Yeah, so the FutureX Collective, so we're a strategic consulting business that is all about designing the future of work for organisations. So it's actually something we were looking at doing prior to COVID. And it's a way that we've been working for a really long time, in that we come from a background of workplace strategy. And whenever we've done a workplace strategy for clients, we've always looked at things like change readiness. We've looked at technology and agility. We've looked at wellness and performance, and we've looked at all of these aspects of a business. And so we were planning on formalising that model before the pandemic. And then obviously, the pandemic happened and we had to sort of, our attention was diverted a little bit, but it really just made it more relevant. So we look holistically at that workplace experience for an organisation's people and help businesses really, figure out how to create the best experience for their people so that they can get the best results.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So I guess the pandemic in some ways just helped speed up what you were planning on doing anyway. Yeah, we felt a little bit like that in our business as well, where the pandemic sort of hit and then we were already doing a fair bit in this new style of business. So it's just really enabled us to double down for 2 years into that space. So yeah, that's cool. Thanks for summarising that and just letting us know what that one's all about. I'm wondering, Angela, you've probably been chatting with organisations and workplaces now for the last couple of years. No doubt you've learnt a lot in that time. What are you seeing in your consultancy at the moment? What are some of the things that are common trends or, common themes with your clients?
Yeah, look, I think not to sound trite at all, but I think the common thing is that there's no one, cookie cutter solution for people. A lot of the clients we're working with, they're grappling with similar issues. So, they might be wanting to try and bring their people back to the office. They might be grappling with technology. They might be grappling with sort of a fragmented culture. Like they're all, facing similar challenges. And so how they then, and what we do is we sort of help them join the dots with all the challenges they're facing, to have this sort of one solution going forward. And so the thing is, it's a bit like the experience of the pandemic itself. Like, nobody had the exact same experience as anybody else. And so what we're finding is that there's so many variables that no business really has the exact same solution as another business, even if they are in the same sector. So law firms, for example, are quite different in their approaches. Tech firms are very different amongst, their own sector and their approaches. And it really just is, what's going to be best for our culture and our organisation and the sorts of things that we want to achieve.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I mean, we kind of all want that one solution, don't we? But in reality, each sector is different, as you say.
Yes.
I'm wondering as well, within that, do you, like, just to shoehorn in something about well-being, or just to talk about that quickly? I'd be interested in your perspective, because that's something that we do a lot on, is well-being. Are you finding that through the last, say, year, organisations are trying to bring that into the fold as well?
Yeah, well-being was definitely on the cards prior to COVID. It was something that was, whenever we work with a client, we never just jump in. We always have this discovery process of getting to know them and understand them. And that issue of well-being and what it means for different businesses was becoming more and more of a priority for a lot of businesses. But what we've found with COVID is it's just completely elevated it to number one. Before, it was sort of in the top three, but now it really is becoming that right up there in terms of priorities. And wellness means a lot of different things for people too. There's the hygiene element of it, which COVID sort of had a big role in that. But then it's also, even things like, I've got friends who were working in Melbourne in really dense workplaces, and felt that was, even prior to COVID, felt that was sort of not a great example of wellness on all sorts of levels. And so, now that we're, starting to go back to the office, there's lots of different ways that wellness starts to play out across, the vertical and horizontal aspects of a business. So it's pretty key.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's sort of that top, it's gone from top three to almost number one in priority. It makes sense as well around that hygiene angle, and no doubt, through your consultancy, I'd imagine you would have had to, through your strategic approach, you would have had to kind of do a bit of research into what the employees were kind of thinking as well. Is that fair to say that you do that as part of your consultancy? Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And that, a lot of people don't want to come back to the office because it's starting to shift a bit now, but they initially didn't want to come back because they didn't want to catch a train, and that was their only option of coming to work. Or, they had family members who were at risk. So they didn't want to, they weren't so worried about themselves so much, but they were worried about, catching anything and passing it on to, high risk or elderly family members. So, that's another example of how wellness is just such a different experience for, people individually and collectively.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. And where we're in Melbourne as part of Pinnacle Health Group. We're also in Sydney, but I predominantly am in Melbourne, and just at one of our head offices, which is inside one of the banks here in Melbourne, we're starting to see people come back to work voluntarily. They don't have to come back in at all, but they just want to, and it's really because they're wanting to get away from home, mainly for like the social aspect of work. And I'm noticing that little teams are starting to come together, especially before Christmas. So they're probably just wanting to catch up before the long break into kind of, it ends up being February that we kind of restart realistically. With some of the research that you've done, what have you found employees are kind of saying for their priorities for sort of next year, or what do they really want? What are the common themes or trends that they're talking about?
Yeah, so before COVID, it feels like, the world is before and after COVID in all sorts of ways. But before COVID, the main reason that the main thing that people, or the main complaint really that people had about the office was that they couldn't focus. And collaboration was great. It was nice to do. And socializing was like, a sort of byproduct of being there. So it was really, the office was really about being able to focus, being able to collaborate, and then, being able to socialize. But what we're seeing now is that, that social aspect that you just mentioned is pretty much equal with the reason why people come back in, with being able to collaborate face to face with their colleagues. So, a lot of the focus work for many people, and, I hate sort of generalizing, but, most people can do their focus work at home unless, they've got, a situation where they're, share house or whatever, or, family and stuff. But, like people now really do want to come to the office to connect with their colleagues. So that's one of the big trends we've seen, that meaning and purpose and whole sort of vision of what the workplace actually is completely fundamentally changed. So, you mentioned the great opportunity before. For us, that's been the great opportunity of what's happened here is, it's time to completely renegotiate what work means.
Yeah, okay. And with organisations now, I am seeing a lot of strong communication from some really good organisations where you can tell that they're kind of just going, all right, what is work? What are we all about? What's this business about? What are the values as well? And then sort of aligning work more purposefully back to the vision. Are you seeing some great examples in the industry that you can comment on without giving away any too many details? Is there any good examples that you can talk of?
Yeah, it's hard. It's that is a hard one, but to not mention names. But I've got one client who they are a mid-tier law firm, and prior to COVID, it was all like, no, couldn't possibly work at home. Everything we do has to be in the office. They are completely cellular, so it was all offices everywhere. They thought they would need, double the amount of space that they had. Their lease was up, and I think it was the beginning of or end of 2020, I think it was. So they moved into temporary space that they would take for a few years just to test and pilot. It was quite a lot less space. They went from, I think it was around 100 offices to 6 offices, and different teams use the space on different days. Their employee engagement scores were just through the roof after this. So it was almost like the kind of genie was out of the bottle, in that, working from home was proven. And so they had to adopt these new ways of working, and it's been a huge success for them. So, I think being able to, work with businesses who've got that sort of open mindset, and they're willing to experiment and test and learn on themselves, that's, I knew that would happen. Hang on, let me just let her out.
That's okay. Oh, good.
There's a dog moved in upstairs because we're in apartments, and
Oh,
I haven't
yeah.
the dog yet, but they go at each other all the time.
I love it. I love a good Zoom bomb. I had one where my daughter came in on me and I was presenting at night time, and she was meant to be in bed, and she just came in and joined in the crowd. It was so funny. So yeah, all good. Don't worry.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I was just saying, like, it's a real test and learn time. So I think the businesses that are open to that, and, don't sort of feel like everything needs to be, you don't need all the answers just yet, because things continue to change. So to be able to be in a place where, you kind of have what you need, but it's not exactly perfect.
Yeah.
And there's room for growth. I think that's really important to success going forward.
Yeah, so it's those bigger businesses figuring out how to work a little bit leaner, like a lean startup sort of mode almost, which you're probably accustomed to as we are. Yeah, it's hard to bring that in, going from old thinking to new thinking. But it's certainly that example you gave is really like quite a good one. That's a huge change from 100 odd offices to 6. That's insane. But no doubt the employees loved it because they felt listened to if that was what they were kind of wanting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example, Angela. I'm wondering as well, like from your research as well. You've obviously learnt a lot in the last couple of years from this rapid change period. What's some of the key learnings for you over the last, say, 2 years with regards to like physical space or spaces?
Yeah, I think, look, the big one is that, you know, we've pretty consistently found that 80% of an organisation's staff want to work from the office 3 days a week and from home 2 days a week. 10% of people never want to go into the office, and 10% of people would just rather be in the office the whole time. So how the physical environment is changing to suit that is that I think initially there was this sort of, I guess, this misconception that people would need less space, like less overall footprint. But I think what's happened, like the big space users, yes, you know, they can consolidate. But I think most sort of medium-sized businesses, they don't actually need less space. They just need different types of space. So the real thing that we're seeing is that teams want to be able to come together. So teams want home zones. And we've been designing home zones that are flex. So they can expand and contract depending on how or who's in on any given day. A lot more collaboration spaces. So, you know, a lot more and open and closed, you know, ability to put things up on the wall, to get everyone around the table, to lay things out, to really, you know, have that sort of shoulder to shoulder, you know, roll up your sleeves, let's get into this sort of collaboration. Because I think Zoom is really, you know, it's kind of sterilized a lot of what we do. And then also, you know, I think the other thing that in the way that workplace has changed is that there's a lot less owned space, but it will really depend on, you know, depending on teams and how they come together. The other thing I was going to add to that, though, too, was that I think the thing that's not yet quite caught up to this way that people want to work in the future is that we still have this mentality of 9 to 5, you know, and Monday to Friday. And our office buildings are even, you know, they're lit like that and they're powered like that. And so I think all of that sort of, you know, that structural side of things hasn't yet caught up to this new kind of agile way of thinking and working. So there's still a lot of change to come, but we're in a really in an interesting place right now where, you know, the user is wanting a lot more agility and a lot more malleability from the workplace.
Yeah, yeah. The point on the 9 to 5 thing, it's like, yeah, like a lot of people are working differently and flexibly, but I feel like that 9 to 5 mentality kind of still is there. And I've recently I was talking about the right to disconnect concept, which is all about I guess, create digital downtime in amongst a flexible working environment. And the thing with that is you do need you need those switch off times, but you also want the user, as you say, or the employee wants the flexibility to be able to work if they want to on the weekend because it suits them. So it's quite interesting on how you create that digital disconnect, if you like, in the workplace, given that everything's on 24/7. But you don't want to be in that 9 to 5 mindset either. So yeah, it's a tricky one, I find.
And I think too, I mean, you know, that 9 to 5 really is ingrained. But I think if you know, if businesses are going to be successful at you know, letting that go and kind of fragmenting that and breaking that down, it needs to be aligned with their culture. You know, you can't have a really authoritarian culture and then you know, kind of expect people to, you know, think innovatively about these sorts of things. So it's you know, that horses for courses and trying to make sure that whatever does get implemented is not imposed, but it's a result of what people are looking for.
Yeah, really good point. Angela, I'm interested as well. I mean, we talk a lot about employee well-being, and I feel like once employee well-being is being talked about to death in the next 12 months, it's going to shift then into performance or productivity, because that's really from well-being. If your well-being sorted, your performance should be fantastic. And let's be honest, that's why that's why it's being talked about so much. It's because we've all gone through this patch of being burnt out, and the mental health toll is well documented. I'm wondering now, I can ask you the big question, which is, well, how do you design a workplace for productivity? It's a big question. I'm sure it's a tricky one to answer.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, to me, productivity always conjures up images of, Henry Ford's assembly line and, those old black and white movies with, the rows and rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of desks, which is never appealing in any way. But when we try to break productivity down into two things: efficiency and engagement. So efficiency of systems, and efficiency of procedures, and efficiency of people being able to get access to the spaces that they want, the technology tools that they want, being able to sit near the people that they want to sit near. For us, that all kind of contributes towards productivity. And then engagement is the other part of that productivity equation, which is about people feeling like they might not be saving starving children in Africa in their day-to-day work, but still what they do has a sense of meaning and purpose, and they're connected to the people that they work with, and they feel like they're doing something useful, so other than just kind of earning a living. So I think those two things are really important when it comes to productivity. So that physical efficiency and technology efficiency, but then that ability for people to really kind of create that engagement and connection that they're looking for.
Yeah, I like how you break that down. Actually, that's quite interesting. Just that, although that efficiency around being able to work where you want to work with the people that you need to work with, and that technology efficiency, no doubt. I'd imagine that's probably one of the biggest irritating factors for some people, given Zoom. We've all zoomed out, etc. Through the last year.
Yeah.
Angela, I'm wondering as well, just as you're obviously, talking with a lot of companies now, and you're probably thinking a little bit ahead, probably more further ahead than I can think with my simple brain. But with the future of work, what do you see? Or with let's forecast out 5 years time. What do you see as like being? There's obviously more change to come. What do you think that is?
Yeah, look, I sort of have this very, idyllic version of the future of work. And, I've, work is something I've always been passionate about. Um, and partly because, if you think of the word work, it's got such a bad reputation. The thesaurus says that, other words that mean work are like labor and toil and chore, and, nothing fun has the word work in it. So you think of housework and homework and paperwork. None of that is fun stuff, right? But I feel like with the pandemic, work is finally having its moment in the sun, because we've questioned everything about it, about work and place and where we do those things. And it's really just opened up this new thinking around what work means. So my idyllic version or vision of the future is that, people can just design their own way of working, their own place of work, that they can integrate their personal life with their working life. There's some clear boundaries around these things, and the two aren't encroaching in the other, and that people individually really get the opportunity to be their best selves, and that work is something that contributes to that. So our latest hashtag is, there's no place like work, because we really think that work should be something that's fulfilling, and it's it adds something to your life, and it's part of this great sort of journey that we're all on to live a really happy and fulfilled life. So for me, I see work being just as important as things like health and fitness and our relationships and connections with others. And so work's a real contributor to people's lives, rather than something we think, oh, I've got to do that because I've got to pay the mortgage.
Yeah, that's great thinking, and very future way of thinking of it. I think there's a lot of change in terms of like the gig economy as well, and there's so many opportunities for people to work in maybe the jobs that they like for maybe half their week, but also then have some passion, like maybe entrepreneurial sort of work that they are doing themselves. There's so many opportunities for people to, I guess, earn a crust in other ways and in things that they're highly passionate about. So yeah, that's really, really cool way of putting it. And I think I've noticed as well, just in terms of like different employees that we work with or we've had in the past, a lot of them, which I'm excited about, they're on to, some of them have moved on to do their own thing, but in like in these little sort of, that's starting off in that side business and learning and growing that way, as well as keeping the steadier job. So yeah, I really love that. That's a really cool way of looking at things. Angela, thanks so much for your time today. It was a really interesting discussion. I probably could have kept asking you so much more, but yeah, thank you again for your time and for sharing some of those insights, especially the research and that story about your client that's gone from huge amount of offices to very little. Yeah, thank you again.
No worries. Thanks, Tom. And there goes my dog again.
Right on cue. I love that. I love a good Zoom bomb. Take care. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
See ya.
Bye.